You've got a great idea for a small business, but you just can't get it off the ground. You want to be your own boss, set your own hours. Well, new year means new opportunities, and Shopify's got you covered to help get your venture off the ground. Shopify makes it easy to manage your growing business. You can get your store up and running easily with thousands of customizable templates. And they help with the details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard. Don't kick yourself next holiday season when your 2025 resolution list looks the same as it does today. Make it happen with Shopify. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/income.
This episode is brought to you by DistroKid. Hey everybody. Today's guest is Blag Dahlia, lead vocalist for the San Francisco, California punk rock band, The Dwarves. Together we break down the writing, recording, and inspiration behind the Dwarves classic, Everybodies Girl, taken from their 1997 album, The Dwarves Are Young and Good Looking. Blag mentioned this record was a turning point for the Dwarves. After Sub Pop Records dropped the band in 1993, they all did some soul searching. It was around this time that Blag felt he wanted to be more song-oriented and pay a little more attention to the writing and production, which led to a series of amazing events, one of which was producer Eric Valentine, who at this point wasn't a household name yet. Eric has since gone on to produce hit records for everyone from Smash Mouth, All American Rejects, Third Eye Blind, and Good Charlotte. Oh, and the influences that Blag throws out are impressive. You would never think this wild punk rocker would have such an eclectic yet awesome taste in music. So for all this, and a surprise guest vocalist on the harmonies of Everybody's Girl, don't touch that dial.
Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast.
Well, hey, Blag, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you feeling, Chris?
I am feeling fantastic. You know, I was telling a buddy of mine the other day, I told him I had you coming on the show, huge fan. And Less Than Jake's done like some festival stuff with you. I've seen Dwarves before. The first time I was young. I think I was just maybe starstruck and too afraid to meet you. I've heard you're the nicest guy in rock and roll. I've seen interviews. You seem nice, but you know, for everyone listening, I know where you came from, man. You came from the 80s punk scene and you just wanted to piss people off. And that's all I wanted to do when I was 15. So it's great. It's great that you're here. And I'm really interested to talk about the song Everybody's Girl with you today, because I feel this was kind of a pivot point for the Dwarves. You know, you guys had kind of went from this outlandish garage rock, punk rock, hardcore band, anything goes. And, you know, a lot of things were happening in 1997. Bands were starting to have a little bit of, shall I say, success. You could kind of make a living at this. And did some of that come into play with all this?
I think it did. I mean, I think it was a combination of things. You know, it's cool that you picked this particular song because it really is exactly that. It's kind of an inflection point. Like, we had been at a label in Seattle and they had made a big deal about dropping us, and we were supposed to be like bad guys, you know, and it was very difficult for us to find anybody to put out our stuff, and people were angry at us and stuff. And there was a big reputation from all the live shows and the mayhem and stuff that would happen, you know. And then meanwhile, I was sort of starting to think about songwriting in a different way and really look at songs. And, you know, at first I would just kind of write whatever naturally came to me. Then I started kind of thinking about song structure. And I was talking with a guy who was a buddy of mine from a band called Material Issue.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure how many people remember Material Issue, but Jim Ellison was a great guy. And I used to party with him when I would go to Chicago. And, you know, I had gone to high school in the suburbs of Chicago. So I would go back there for Christmas or whatever, and I would see these friends. I would hang out with Urge Overkill and Material Issue and these different guys in Chicago that weren't necessarily associated with the punk scene or with the Dwarves, but they were guys that I knew and would hang out with. And Material Issue had songs. He was really big on having songs with girls' names in them. So he would have like, Valerie Loves Me. That was their hit. And then they had like, Renee Remains the Same and these different songs, right? But some people don't know, like when the Dwarves started, we were like a 60s garage cover band for the most part. So I was really into those Nuggets albums and Pebbles albums, and I was like into rockabilly records and stuff like this. But nobody really associated the Dwarves with that, because every time we would go to play a show and we'd have our 60s gear on, whatever, we would get in a fight or something would happen. It was like punk rock. Like finally I just turned around and looked at the guys in the band and I'm like, we're a punk band, right? Because like it doesn't matter if we try and be 60s and we try and have paisley shirts or we try and be rockabilly or whatever. We always wind up getting in a fight and getting thrown out of the club or whatever. Like we're just punks, it's just, that's just kind of the way it is. After we lost our record deal, it was about 1993, maybe 94. We were really at a low point. Some people had left the band and I had to regroup, and I didn't really have a group. And but I was really determined to make a good record, and I didn't want to be dropped again. I wanted to own my own records and have my own stuff. And so it was really an inflection point in all these different ways. So I'm hanging out with Material Issue. He says to me, like, you should do a song with a girl's name, right? Jim Ellison says to me, you should do a song with a girl's name. And I'm like, dude, that's your gimmick. You know what I mean? You've already had these like little twee pop songs with girls that are like, that's not my thing. But I went home and I started thinking about it, and I came up with this song structure, and I was like, a lot of different girls' names. That's it. This is going to work, So I wrote the song, and then we produced it, and we didn't have a record deal or anything. It was the first time I'd ever just sort of begged, borrowed, and stealed to kind of bankroll a session. And we came out with this song, among others, Everybody's Girl. And I was like, wow, this is really good. And I remember calling Jim and being like, hey man, you were right. That's my best song, So, it was kind of an attempt to be like, maybe we can put a pre-chorus in a Dwarf song. Maybe we can. Yeah. Maybe we can put a bridge in a Dwarf song. Maybe we can do these things that pop bands do and it'll still work. So it really was an inflection point. I don't know. Maybe that's too long an answer, but
no, it's not too long an answer at all. It's awesome, because I learned a lot of the guys that I grew up listening to and admired. I kind of wrote them off maybe in the early albums. Oh, they're just a knucklehead punk. But I've talked to a lot of them, yourself now included, Joe Queer, where it's like these guys came from a musical background. I talked to Joe about this recently. Like they love 60s music, love 70s music, and here they were as young kids finding their feet and fighting everyone in the club and playing only for 15 minutes and what have you. But as time goes by, you're like, you know what? I want to delve into my songwriting a little bit more. And that seems like what kind of happened to you.
Well, yeah. And also, so the musical background I came from was, my parents were like older and they liked like the American songbook, so I kind of grew up with, the classics, the Irving Berlin songs and Cole Porter songs and the, going to musicals and stuff. When I was a kid, I was in Babes in Arms and Oliver and Jesus Christ Superstar and whatever musicals were around, but I never really got a part in it. I was just kind of a chorus guy. And I knew that I wasn't that good for that. And then my brother was really into very sophisticated jazz, so he would listen. He was a DJ on the south side of Chicago and would play jazz, 20-minute John Coltrane, sax solo, Dizzy Gillespie, these different groups, right? So I grew up with very sophisticated music, and my biggest influence was Frank Zappa. And the problem was I just didn't have the talent to do that stuff. I would hear some intense solo, but I couldn't play it on my clarinet, and I would hear a Zappa song and think, how did he get all these instruments in here? And how do you do this? I just couldn't even approach it. And so I loved music, and the more, more sophisticated stuff, even more. And I would be fascinated by like the workings of a musical or a Zappa thing or like a Monty Python musical interlude or whatever it was. And I was just really disgusted with myself that I couldn't do it and I couldn't understand it and I couldn't play it. And then I heard the Ramones, and it just changed my entire life. It changed my entire life.
Game
I was
changer.
like, I can do this. I can sing this. I can
Mhm.
play this on a guitar. I can conceive of this. And so really, literally, like punk rock just saved me and gave me a musical career, because it allowed me to be able to write stuff and do stuff and have a group and be there. And so it was sort of, I had this very sophisticated, evolved musical taste when I was 12 and 13 years old. And then when I was 14, it all kind of came undone, and I discovered punk rock and 60s garage and rockabilly all at the same time. And it was kind of something that I could do. And so for the next few years, I kind of tried to figure that out. And then, you get kind of in my early 20s, the Dwarves that people know, which is like Blood, Guts, and Pussy and Thank Heaven for Little Girls and those records. And the earliest Dwarves records were still like trying to be 60s punk and that kind of stuff. But even at that, I had already internalized like more simple music. And so after the Sugar Fix album came out, which is sort of my first attempt to like bring songwriting in or different ways of looking at things, I was really fascinated by that. And then, like I say, lost the record deal. Everybody was mad at us. There was a whole thing about the he who cannot be named death thing. And
Can we talk about that real quick, just for everybody listening, because the evolution
Yeah.
of your band, Blag, it's amazing
insane.
because by all accounts, I shouldn't be talking to you right now. You shouldn't have made it. Someone should have
Right.
OD'd. You shouldn't be here. So I'd like to tell everyone listening a few things about the Dwarves before we dive into the track, so you know what you're dealing with here. Blag mentioned guitarist he who cannot be named. They are the core members of the group. You've been around since the mid 80s. You became notorious for self-mutilation, on-stage sex, and taking hard drugs. Their live shows would often last around only 15 minutes, occasionally cut short due to injury caused by spectators. Before I go on, I got to say, some of my favorite punk rock's Midwest, especially that Chicago area. You guys, Screeching Weasel, Vindictives.
Yeah, Chicago really bred a certain kind of punk fan because in every other town, there were like little $3 shows and like cool guys putting on some show in a warehouse or whatever. Chicago was always like mainstream clubs, asshole bouncers, and booking agents that were like, we're going to get a big band from California to headline, and then we'll let somebody from Detroit and somebody from Milwaukee open for no money, and fuck all the local bands. They can all suck my dick. And then you'd get to the show, and it would be like, well, your girlfriend can come in, but you got to stay outside. It was just bonehead Chicago bullshit, like you would expect. You know what I mean? So you really developed a hard shell. You can see it in like Weasel. I mean, he after I became friends with him years later, I showed him a review that he had written of Sugar Fix, which was the last Dwarves album before Young and Good Looking, which had Everybody's Girl. And he's talking about, Dwarves are sellouts and the Dwarves are, whatever, like a bunch of radio pussies or whatever they are, like, yeah, okay, man, that makes a lot of sense, but you can see it from a Chicago guy's point of view because we were like a punk band in opposition. Whereas like you see with all the California bands that everything kind of solidified around, or the New York bands, it was a scene, and they all knew each other from high school and they were all, fucking had their little thing.
I can really relate to what you said about Chicago with the bouncers and everything, because the only place I remember playing was Fireside Bowl. That was really punk rock. The rest of it was like, more corporate, Metro. And
that was a lot of years later. Fireside Bowl was 10 years after I left Chicago. I mean, so like, it was
Gotcha.
it was very hard. There was a place called Medusa's where underage people would go. But again, it just had this Chicago thing. So it was like, oh, okay, a bunch of guys with spider web tattoos are going to try and jump us now. Like, all right, I got my Paisley boots on, like, fuck you, we're not taking it. But, yeah, it was very, you know, you just got you in Illinois. I mean, I don't come from Chicago. I come from Illinois, but the punk scene I was closest to was Chicago. And, you know, but where I live, you know, it was like you walk down the street and then somebody'd pass you in a car and go, hey, get a haircut and a job. And they'd throw a beer at you, you know, that, you know, whereas in California, it was like, hey, there's 2,000 kids at the Olympic Auditorium. They're all going to see the punk show. It was like, not in Chicago, man.
It definitely was different. And, you know, around your second LP, which was only 9 minutes long, it was called Tooling for a Warm Teabag.
Yeah.
After that, you guys released Blood, Guts, and Pussy on Sub Pop in 1990. And now Sub Pop, you know, this was just prior to the whole Nirvana thing, but they were kind of the biggest name in the indie game going at that time. You guys morphed into the hardcore, more of a hardcore punk sound. You released the EP Lucifer's Crank and the LP Thank Heavens for Little Girls in 91. Now get this, in the early 90s, the band issued a press release stating their guitarist, He Who Cannot Be Named, had been stabbed to death in Philadelphia. Though this later turned out to be a hoax, the band even went as far as to attach a tribute to the late guitarist on their 1993 Sub Pop album, Sugar Fix. Sub Pop did not respond well to the hoax and dropped the band. You would have thought that would have been the greatest story in the world. They would have exploited it.
Yeah, but very typical, you know, it was like, they were having a fight with their, you know, indie distro. I think it was Caroline, and they were going to Warner because of the big success they'd had with Nirvana. So Sugar Fix was completely ignored because Caroline didn't pick it up and Warner didn't pick it up. And then, yeah, the label put out a bullshit press release as though they weren't in on it with us, even though they were. And then they kind of acted like, oh, we hoaxed them too. It was like, no, you didn't. You just pussied out of everything. The whole thing was really deplorable on their end. That's why I don't really mention that label or deal with them in any way. And I finally got all of these records back.
Good for you.
They were complete fucking pricks, and I don't like them then, and you know, it's just, that's the way that it went.
That's good, because a short 4 years later, you guys did reform in 97.
One interesting postscript before we get to that is that this coming year for Record Store Day, we're putting out a record that is really, anybody who loves Blood, Guts, and Pussy is really going to trip on this record, because what it is the recording that we did the time we went up to Seattle before we made Blood, Guts, and Pussy. So it's a lot of those songs, but it's just us live in the studio with Jack and Dino recording.
Oh man, that's awesome.
So it's like what Blood, Guts was kind of like live. And it's a really cool document of the band, but it's mixed by us now. So it sounds good. And then it's, you know, but this is like 1989. And then the artwork is all of the other pictures from the Blood, Guts session, and all of the, you know, on the I don't know if you remember it, but the front of the Blood, Guts obviously is the two naked
How could you
girls,
forget it?
Dwarf, yeah, two naked girls and the dwarf, and that was really kind of put us on the map. It was a photo by Michael Levine, so we got all these alternate photos of that we've included in the artwork. It's like a big gatefold sleeve with an inner sleeve, but then you pull it out and it's a picture disc. Like, this is going to be like the ultimate Record Store Day thing with like all these cool photos of, you know, from that session with the dwarf guy and the chicks, but then also all the live photos by Charles Peterson that are like from the back cover. So everything, the whole motif is the same. It's the white, stark, naked girl pictures on the front, and then the live pictures of the band on the back. But it's like, it's a picture disc. It's got a sleeve. It's got a gatefold. So it's just this whole elaborate package. And we called it Sunshine, Lollipops, and Daydream. Or sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Yeah, that's it. And you know, so that's, I mean, that to me is like the ultimate, like, Blood, Guts, and Pussy has come around full circle to this release. So I think people who love that record are really going to love it. But anyway, so yeah, so then, you know, everything's over after Sugar Fix, and we're just supposed to kind of crawl off and not exist anymore. And I said, look, you know, this time I'm just going to bankroll my own record any way that I can, because I wound up borrowing the money actually from an engineer that I knew and some various people, and recorded what came to be The Dwarves Are Young and Good Looking. And then it took me several years. I went to every punk guy looking for a release, and nobody would do it. So I went to Fat, and I went to BYO, and I went to Nitro, which was
Dexter Holland's label.
And Dexter, of course, he actually kind of gave me the idea for the cover, because I played him it, and he's like, man, this is great, but it's like, we don't kind of want to be known as the old man punk label. We've already done TSOL and Agent Orange, and we want to get some young bands. And I was like, but the Dwarves are young and good looking. Look at that. That's what we should call this record, actually. So the person who wound up putting it out was my good friend Todd from the band FYP. He had a label called Recess.
Yeah.
And then I guess he didn't have enough money to do the whole thing. So there was also this album called Theologian. I didn't really know that guy, but he came in and got in on it too. So the initial release of Young and Good Looking was Recess and Theologian. They put out 10,000 copies, and then I had a feeling it might get bigger. And so I limited it to 10,000. When we got rid of that, it was like, finally Epitaph, the third time I asked them, signed it and put it out. So that was an example of like real tenacity. Like, nobody wanted the Dwarves and nobody wanted to put out this record. And even though it sounded really good and we had kind of hit the pop punk thing, it just took actually having friends put it out before some bigger label would do it.
I love it. Listen, I could talk to you about this stuff all day long. We got to get into this song.
Okay.
Yeah. This track is 2 minutes and 42 seconds. Since the record, The Dwarves Are Young and Good Looking, you guys have released 9 more albums. The most recent being Keep It Real from June 2024. I love that you're still here and rocking with us, Blag. 2 minutes and 42 seconds. Before we jump in completely, is it Everybodies, like bodies of people, or Everybodies with a Y?
Well, this is so funny because I'm a real stickler for grammar.
Okay, so am I, and I keep seeing it spelled twice.
I hate bad grammar. So the way that it's spelled on the record is Everybodies, like Bodies. And the only reason I did that was just to keep an apostrophe out of it. I think really properly it should be Everybody, and then with an apostrophe S, Everybodies Girl, the girl that belongs to everybody. But it was also like, well, this girl could potentially be everybody in the world, Bodies girl. So I think really you could make a grammatic argument for it either way. But the way we spelled it was like bodies without the apostrophe.
Okay, well, we're going to spell it bodies in all the ad mats and stuff. The intro is a lone snare drum, starts things off. Then it's full drums, bass, and stereo guitars. They're in for 4 bars to bring us into verse 1.
Kitty calls me on the phone to say she's all alone and needs somebody there. Crystal sees into the future, tells me that she's an asshole, sure that Roger really cares. I sit and wonder if we are sharing a different world, and all these naked emotions whirling around me swirl, and I'm in love with Everybody's Girl.
Kitty calls me on the phone to say she's all alone and needs somebody there. Crystal sees into the future, tells me that she's an asshole, should have.
No, that's not
but
it.
Who really cares? That's not it?
No, it's Katie calls me on the phone to say she's all alone and needs somebody there.
Okay, got that.
Crystal sees into the future, so that's a pun, right? She's like looking into a crystal ball. Crystal sees into the future, tells me that she's not so sure that Roger really cares. So she's talking to me about her boyfriend, looking into her crystal ball and not sure if he cares.
Am I hearing a different version then? There's no way. This is the studio version.
Katie calls me on the phone to say she's all alone and needs somebody there. Crystal sees into the future, tells me that she's not so sure that Roger really cares. I sit and wonder if we are sharing a different world, and all these naked emotions whirling around me twirl. I'm in love with Everybody's Girl.
Okay. I don't know why I swear the lyrics that are here are what I heard. You never sang those lyrics.
No, the word asshole doesn't exist in this. This was our more commercial tune. I wasn't going to put asshole in it.
That is absolutely crazy. I swear I hear the word asshole there. You threw your voice. You're a ventriloquist, Blag. Who knew? Stereo guitars, bass, and drums are all here in verse one. They're all chugging away. I love the strumming patterns. It's not just straight ahead. There's some cool strumming on the stereo guitars here. And it sounds like the lead vocals doubled. Around the second to last line, we get these big held out backing vocals with harmonies on them. And let's talk a little bit about producer Eric Valentine. This is kind of before he became a household name. You know, he's went on to do Third Eye Blind, Smash Mouth, All American Rejects, Good Charlotte, and many more. I know Eric from T-Ride when he was a drummer. He's a killer drummer. But where did he enter into the equation here?
That was very random. I had a friend named Harper who had done some studio work for him. And I was just saying, hey, do you know anybody that has a Neve board? Everybody was getting SSL boards and they sounded very clean on guitars. And I was like, who's got like a Neve? And it just sounds like big guitars, you know? And so I went there with my own engineer, the guy who had done Sugar Fix. I thought I had my guy. And he came up, Brad Cook, and he tracked the initial drum session, right? And then, you know, he was working with pretty big producer Gail Norton.
Oh, yes. Okay.
He went back and had to do like a Counting Crows record or something. And I was stuck. And I said, fuck, what am I going to do? And he said, well, that guy that owns the studio is pretty good. It seemed. He seemed to know what he was doing. Just see what you get out of him. And it turned out to be Eric Valentine. And after sitting next to the guy for 3 days, I'm like, this guy's fucking Mozart. I'm attaching myself to him like a barnacle. And
I love it.
You know, he wound up making, you know, 6-7 records with me as he got bigger and bigger. The other 2 records he was making while we did Young and Good Looking was, Smash Mouth. They used the Dwarves Farfisa organ on Walking on the Sun. And then Third Eye Blind was the other band he was doing at the same time. So those guys got their big major label deals. And I even managed to get my Epitaph deal out of the, you know, essentially how good the production sounded from Eric.
That's rad. That's so good.
You know, but he didn't really produce it in the sense of like doing pre-production, figuring out what key it was in, rehearsing the band. There was none of that. We did all that. It was just basically his mix, and he overdubbed. So he recorded, you know, the vocals and the bass and guitar. And
the other guy that was credited here along with production was Eric Valentine, yourself, and Bradley Cook. Is this the same Bradley Cook that he's all over the place with his productions? That's killer. Ben Harper, Tom Jones, Stray Cats, Fear Factory, and Katie Seagal, who played the wife of Al Bundy on Married with Children.
Well, the big one was that the first big Foo Fighters record, Brad had engineered that with Gail Norton. That was The Color and the Shape.
Yeah, okay.
So that he had done that, I think, and then came up and we did this. So yeah, there was some stuff going on with that, and I wound up producing a lot of sort of small time punk records with Brad. But Eric was kind of the big discovery from this record. You know, you were talking about the guitar sound and the strumming pattern, and I agree with that. The difference between this and every other Dwarves record was when it was Hugh Cannot Be Named, he was just all downstrokes like the Ramones, you know, and then he had kind of a wide open left hand that he would play a lot of crazy shit with, and it was kind of that was the vibe of it. And then we got a guitar player, Holy Smokes, that came in, and he did that heavy metal strumming pattern. So you take a song like Everybody's Girl, which is very Ramones, and usually you just hear it as downstrokes. If the Queers did it or the Billingtons or whoever did it, that's what it would be. But the way that Holy Smokes did it, it was and so you got a heavy metal approach to rhythm guitar. And I think that's part of the alchemy of this song that makes it so cool. The chord progression is pure Ramones, but the strumming pattern is pure Metallica or whatever.
I'm glad you brought that back up because there's so much character with this. It's not just Ramones. Yeah, the chord sequence structure could be a Ramones song, but not the way that it's executed. I love it. I think it's really cool. Yeah,
it's cool that you picked up on that. The only other thing I'll say is the riff, and nobody would pick up on this, but I someone pointed out to me subconsciously because I would listen to this song, but there was a song called Breakaway by Irma Thomas. And it goes, I'll never, ever break away from you.
I can't say goodbye. I'll never, ever break away from you. No.
And I think that's where I got, I'm in love with
my gosh.
Everybody's Girl.
I know that song.
Yeah, it's a great old R&B jam, and I used to listen to it a lot. Again, like the Dwarves' influences are a lot different than most punk bands' influences, I think. I mean, I think people say that about themselves, but I talk to a lot of these California guys, and if you talk to Fat Mike, I mean, his first band is Bad Religion. Like that's what brought him into rock and roll, that kind of shit. It's like, that's not me at all. To me, those are all new guys, even if they came before me, because I was really rooted in the 50s and 60s stuff and then early punk, So to me, that whole kind of pop punk thing that came up, to a lot of California guys, that's just like grade one, that's the first thing. They know their Descendant record and their Adolescent record, and that's what makes them. But I just come from a whole different scenario.
Well, yeah, and you can and you can hear that too. You went on to recite what I'm calling the pre-chorus here. I think the next part that comes, I sit here and wonder if we are sharing a different world, and all these naked emotions whirling around me swirl, and then the chorus is just, and I'm in love with everybody's girl to me.
Yeah, I would call that a tagline chorus. So
Yeah.
I look at it the same way you do. Like the verse is, Katie called me on the phone, says she's all alone, needs somebody there. Crystal sees into the future, tells me that she's not so sure that Roger really cares. And the pre-chorus is, I sit and wonder if they are sharing a different world and all these naked emotions whirling around me swirl. And then you just get a tagline, I'm in love with everybody's girl, And that's sort of the chorus of the song.
Hey everybody, don't go anywhere. We got lots more coming up with Blag Dahlia after a few words from our sponsors.
Looking to elevate your music career? DistroKid is a digital music distribution service that enables musicians to distribute their music to online stores and streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon, Tidal, and many more. DistroKid collects earnings and payments, sending them to you, the artist. With DistroKid, artists unlock a world of possibilities. From easily paying collaborators with splits, to securing your music with DistroLock, DistroKid covers all bases. Plus, you can promote your releases with Hyperfollow and create eye-catching visuals with a Spotify Canvas generator, all for free. But that's not all. Introducing the DistroKid app, now available on iOS and Android. Artists can manage their releases, view streaming stats, and withdraw earnings, all from the palm of their hand. And for those looking to perfect their sound, check out Mixia. With its simple interface and customizable mastering options, artists can make their music sound polished and professional within minutes. And don't forget about Instant Share, DistroKid's newest feature. Share large files securely with collaborators, producers, and more, ensuring your music streams at the highest quality. Ready to take your music to the next level? Download the DistroKid app and explore their suite of tools today. Plus, listeners can enjoy 30% off their first year by visiting distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes. That's distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum, built for business by American Express.
One Hit Thunder is a podcast where we both celebrate and have a good laugh about bands and artists that had just one hit that we all know. Each week, we're joined by a guest from the world of music or comedy to learn more than you ever thought you would about some songs that you can't forget. And we decide if they brought the One Hit Thunder or were nothing more than a one-hit blunder. Look, if you listen to the show, you're probably going to laugh, and I guarantee you're going to crush next time the bar has music trivia. Tag Team, Jane Child, Meredith Brooks, Looking Glass, Sean Mullins, Eiffel 65, EMF, Crash Test Dummies, Crazy Town, Chumbawamba. We have hundreds of episodes in our back catalog and a new episode each week, so pass the Dutchie, make sure you're connected, and subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your pods.
When she was all spun out on meth, I knew she'd be the...
And now, back to the show.
Well, the pre-chorus, the stereo guitars ring out at the top, but then start playing some arpeggios over those minor chords. I love that. We get a harmony in the chorus with I'm in love with Everybody's Girl. Then we get a 2-bar band turnaround to go right into verse 2. And I can't wait to hear about verse 2 because I think I kind of know what's going on. It's the 90s. I want to see if some of these names, if I'm spot on or not.
Well, before we get there, the harmony is Spike from Me First and the Gimme Gimme. So
no
he's
kidding.
the guy that sings all the harmonies on this record. And again, this is an example. I really trace this as when I kind of figured out what production was, because we never had a producer and nobody ever really helped us in the studio. So we just tried as hard as we could to get something that sounded okay. And we arranged our own stuff and figured our own stuff out. And by the time I got to this record and started working with Eric and hearing these different things, it started to occur to me that actually what production was more like casting. Like you just cast the right people and then let them do what they do. So I cast Holy Smokes as the guitar player and he delivered that different guitar part. I wouldn't have been able to tell him this is what you need to do in this song, but because I cast that guy, he played it that way. Then because I cast Eric as the producer, he recorded and mixed things in a certain way. I wasn't telling him to make it sound like that. He made it sound like that because that's kind of his sound. So then it was the same with Spike. Spike had played a little bass with the Dwarves, and I just knew him as a really good singer, and I respected his singing a lot. But Me First didn't exist yet. They hadn't made their records yet. I knew him from kind of the local thing, but I thought he was a great singer. So I brought him in and he just made up those things. I just said, I need a background vocal in here.
I love what you said. You're casting. I've never heard that. That's a fascinating concept. You're branching out. You're saying, here's my ideas. These are my lyrics. It's my vision. But I can't tell this guy how to play guitar. It just so turns out that, yeah, it's a Ramon-styled song, but what he brought to it is this completely different take on it. And you get what you get. It's great.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say concept because, of course, our last record was the concept album, the Dwarves concept album, which was like 20 songs and a big sprawling kind of white album kind of thing. And it's exactly that. By now, I'm casting as a songwriter. So I love Nick Oliveri's style. And so he writes songs. I could never write a song like that. Fresh Prince of Darkness wrote a bunch of great songs. Saltpeter, the original bass player in the band, comes back and writes songs. And then Keep It Real is like, we had so much material for a concept album that I had to make a whole nother mini LP out of that material, which was Keep It Real. So like, I think that's one of the ways that the Dwarves have continued to be a cool band is that there's so many songwriters in the band. Everybody in the band is a songwriter. And I'm not that guy that goes, well, we got to just do my song. I'm just the opposite. I'm like, I'm just casting. So it's like, oh, you're really good and you brought in a great song. Let's do your song. So I got that whole Nick Oliveri aspect with this whole kind of desert thing.
Yeah.
And I got
Stoner Rock.
Yeah. And, he's one of the creators of that, but also a great punk and thrash player. And then guys like, Fresh Prince of Darkness, he's more like a Rolling Stones rock and roll guy. And so I get those kind of songs. And it's just, again, to me, at this point, it's all very deconstructed. I just bring in good people for their songs and their performances, and then I'm kind of the one tying it all together. And that started with kind of this song and this album.
That is awesome. That's almost more of a producer's role in the sense of what producers used to do in the 70s and 80s. They'd be like, hey, this guy's playing bass on the record, and I got this guy to do this, and these ladies are going to sing background vocals here, and you're putting it together being the guy in the band. That is awesome. Want to get into verse 2 here.
Look at Brenda there with Luke. She's giving him the boot. Oh, but Kelly's standing by. Oh, and here comes my man. Ask her, do you wanna? But I never even tried. I'm sitting and wonder if we are sharing a different world. And are these TV emotions making the channels twirl? And I'm in love with Everybodies Girl.
Look at Brenda there with Luke. She's giving him the boot. Ah, but Kelly's standing by. Oh, and here comes my man Tom. Ask her, do you wanna? But I never even try.
No, that doesn't even make sense. My man Tom.
Yeah, I know, but I can't find what you say there. Have you ever read the lyrics to this online?
I should. I didn't know people misinterpreted this so much.
I went to 15, 20 different sites, Blag. It all says the same thing, and I can't discern what you're saying.
It kind of makes me happy that it's confusing because that's just punk rock, right? Nobody actually knows, but everybody's pretending like they do.
What do we got here? What are you saying?
So first of all, this line is about the television show 90210, this sequence, right? So
Makes sense.
Look at Brenda there with Luke. So Shannon Doherty's character was Brenda, whereas Luke Perry played Dylan. So they were, look at Brenda there with Luke. She's giving him the boot with Kelly standing by. So it was the famous love triangle from 90210, right? With Kelly and Brenda. But then I used Luke instead of Dylan. So, and here comes my mad Donna. So that's a pun on Donna, who's the virgin from 90210. It's not my man Tom. It's here comes my mad Donna. So Madonna being the pun. Here comes my mad Donna. Ask her, do you wanna? But I never even try. So it's like she was the virgin on the show. And so it's like, oh, I'm not even going to bother with that, right? I sit and wonder if we're sharing a different world and all these TV emotions making the channels swirl. So it alludes to that it's about 90210.
I do my my due diligence here. I do my best to get these lyrics right. I can't remember the last time off the bat I got the first two verses wrong. I got to recoup here, Blag. Same instrumentation as verse 1 here in verse 2. We get those ahs right around those backing vocals with the harmonies pan left and right. Right around the line, do you wanna? Pre-chorus 2, same instrumentation as pre-chorus 1, but there's a lyric change on the second line, which is and all these TV emotions making the channels swirl. And I'm in love with Everybody's Girl. That same harmony we get. Our friend Spike from Me First, that harmony on the chorus. And then we get a 2-bar band turnaround again into a 10-bar guitar solo musical interlude. Drums, bass, and stereo guitars. The guitar panned off left is really playful, and the guitar off right doing the ring outs and some arpeggios, it almost sounds like a Gretsch hollow body or something over there. What is that?
Wow. I can't remember what guitar he was using. But one of the things about Eric's arsenal was he had a million different guitars. So it's very possible that after doing probably a kind of standard Les Paul rhythm part, when we went to overdub on it, he said, why don't you use this guitar? And usually it would be something more Fendery, right? With like a single coil pickup or something like that. Or maybe it was a Telly, but I really couldn't say for sure. And there were a lot of different amps in there, like the amp setup that Eric was using at that time, to get us, it was this combination of it was like 50% Marshall for that standard punk rock great sound. It was probably like a plexi or something with like a power soak, so you could turn it up real loud and it would sound good. And then there was also a Fender for the clean, surfy aspect of it. And then there was a, and that would be like a Fender Twin or something like that,
right,
with reverb on it. And then it was maybe 25% like sort of some kind of heavy metal amp. So the equivalent of like a Mesa Boogie or something like that. But it was probably, I think what Eric had was called a Soldano.
Oh, Soldanos, yeah.
And so we using that combination, it was like 2 parts Marshall, 1 part metal, 1 part garage. And that was kind of that sound. But then with the overdubs, it might have been anything, like it might have been a Vox amp or some cool vintage thing or something.
Coming out of this guitar solo, I am petrified to read these lyrics, but we're going into a bridge.
I'm spending Cinco de Mayo with my Maria, celebrating our independence with little Emily. And if the New Year should find you without Jenny, there she'll be. You'll find her under my tree, wrapped up and wait for me.
The guitar solo is over the bridge chords. So that's another thing that makes this song kind of interesting. When it goes to the solo, it doesn't just solo over the verse like you'd expect. It goes to the bridge chords and solos, and then it goes to the bridge. So that was kind of a neat way of doing it. I guess traditionally you'd sort of go to the bridge and then do your solo.
Yeah.
I don't know why in this one it was solo first, but that just seemed right.
I have that written here. I said interesting arrangement. And was that talked about? Do you remember doing a demo for this song?
This was when I was really starting to think about song structure. And I do credit my friend Jim from Material Issue for getting me to think about that. I don't think I'd heard the word pre-chorus until he said it to me. I'd written some, but I didn't really think of them in those terms. It was just like, well, this is the next part.
Yeah.
Right.
And now that I think about it, this could be interchanged. You could have went from, chorus to I'm in love with everybody's girl right into the bridge, then into the solo.
Because it's the same chord.
But I like this. It's better.
Yeah. There was something about doing it as a solo first, and it's kind of truncated. It's not the entire bridge. It's the first half of the bridge. And then comes a bridge. But anyway, let's see how you mutilate the lyrics here.
Yeah. Geez. I'm okay. Here we go. I'm spending Cinco de Mayo with my Maria, celebrating independence with little Emily. And if the New Year should find you without Jenny, there she'll be. You'll find her under my tree, wrapped up and waiting for me.
Right. So that was perfect. And that's just basically like your classic, like one of the songwritery things I started thinking about at that time lyrically was like songs that are all based on days of the week, or songs that are, off a TV show, or songs that, mention different girls' names. Right. So that was different holidays. All the girls are different. So Cinco de Mayo's with Marie, but then Independence Day is with Emily. And then the New Year is with somebody else. So that was kind of the whole, gimmick there.
Okay. And was the lyric, I'm spending Cinco de Mayo with my Maria or just Maria?
With my Marie.
Oh, my Marie. Okay, because there was a song called My Maria.
It should be Maria because it's Cinco de Mayo, but that didn't fit syllable-wise. So it was my Marie,
Love it. Well, the first 3 lines up to Jenny, we get these big padded oohs, these backing vocals with harmonies on them there. And
that's all Spike.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And it's all Spike maybe singing, but the idea, was that his, or were you kind of thinking, we need some backing vocals here, or Eric Valentine?
Yeah, the most I did was say, we need backing vocals here. That was all I did. He came up with his own parts. I'm terrible with harmonies. I've never been able to sing a harmony or really conceive of them. I just say, hey, we need something here. And again, this gets back to the casting idea. You get good people, and then they supply you with that. In the solo stuff that I'm doing now, I've started working with Petra Hayden, who is really the past master of this. I just say, we need some background vocal here, and it needs to kind of be like the girl from Ipanema, and she comes up with 30 tracks of shit. You know what I mean? So it's very like, I like working with people that are good, and they like working with me because I let them do what they want to do without telling them what to do. So I think like there is a world in which your productions are better if you're not quite so hands-on. But I'm just kind of stuck with that. Like if I was Mr., Brian Wilson hearing harmonies in my head guy, then I'd be telling people exactly what harmony they're supposed to sing. But I can't do that.
It's very humbling. Very humbling. You don't find many guys that can just flat out admit that. I mean, I mean that. It's
producers are full of shit most of the
They
time.
are. They
have
are.
to come up with a lot of reasons why they're so brilliant and why you need them, but I'm actually the guy in the band and the guy that wrote the song. So I'm more like everything's in service to the song.
Did Bob Rock make the Metallica record, or did those four guys make it? Well, I mean, whose side are you on, right?
Right.
Verse 3.
Wait for me. If you call me on the phone, don't ever weep and moan. You'll always find me there. And if you see into the future, be so kind as not to tell me what you find out there. We'll lie in bed watching reruns of another world. Just like a joint ballerina, stuck on a tilt the world. I'm in love with.
Blag, I've never done this in almost 5 years of this show. I'm going to have you read verse 3 and I'm going to read the lyrics along. Verse 3, what do we got?
If you call me on the phone, don't ever weep and moan. You'll always find me there. And if you see into the future, be so kind as not to tell me what you find out there. So that harkens back to the earlier verse, Crystal sees into the future. Like, if you see into the future, I don't want to hear about what's there. Then it's, we'll lie in bed watching reruns of another world. So again, that harkens back to the first line where it says, feels like we're sharing a different world, as I say. We'll lie in bed watching reruns of another world. So we're just sitting around watching soap operas, just like a drunk ballerina stuck on a tilt-a-whirl, which I don't even know what that means. It's just a good line. I've seen it written as drunk palomino stuck on a tilt-a-whirl, which is pretty good too.
Okay.
But yeah, I had it as drunk ballerina stuck on a tilt-a-whirl.
Well, I did have verse 3 correct. Thank you for reading those, as well as pre-chorus 3 here. I did get the ballerina line. That was correct. And actually, you enunciate that really well. I'm surprised people got that one wrong. I could understand it. Those backing vocals, I started to say a second ago, 1997. I don't think you guys recorded this to Pro Tools. This was to tape, right?
This was to tape, absolutely. And it was recorded in 95. It went through a long period of me just begging somebody to put it out and figure it out,
Gotcha. Okay, and then we get right into chorus 3.
I'm in love with everybody. I'm in love with everybody. I'm in love.
Oh, you're creepy.
With everybody's girl. Oh, yeah.
And I'm in love with everybody. I'm in love with everybody. I'm in love. And then we get a, ooh, you're creepy. It's like this slightly distorted female voice. Who says that there?
Yeah, so that was a girl that I was dating at the time. And, she left an answering machine message and it was just, ew, you're creepy. It was something I had said, to her in the previous call or on her answering machine. And yeah, that's everybody waits for that, and like when we play live, I hand the mic out and some people just go, everybody's girl. And it's like, no, you didn't listen to the song.
You didn't get the line.
When people go, ooh, you're creepy. It's like, that's it. Yeah.
Was that taken from the voicemail, the actual line?
Yeah. Taken straight off the voicemail.
That makes so much sense because it does kind of sound like it's just stuck there. It's not really in tune or anything. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, and again, this is where my influences are just much different than hip hop guys' influences, because that really hit a lot of people's ears in a cool way, I think, at that time, because hip hop records were really starting to enter the mainstream, and samples, it was becoming more common to hear a sample in a song.
Sure.
But not if you were sitting around listening to Pennywise and Bad Religion and all of the kind of usual suspects of the pop punk era. Like they were still a good 20 years from that little innovation, you know what I mean? Like, but for me, like when we made Blood, Guts, and Pussy, the record I was listening to was Straight Outta Compton and Easy Does It and the Ghetto Boys, so even then, and basically like the only place you really see a hip hop influence in the Dwarves is in that, like I'll say our name, the name of the band or my name, or specific things, which really, again, if you look through all the pop punk lyric shit, they never say their name, or there's like little rules about how you do it. It's always about your girlfriend and whatever the fuck it is. Like, so like I was very influenced by hip hop lyricism, but I didn't like put on a baseball cap and try to go, yo, and that kind of shit. It was more like, and so dropping that sample in was like, oh, you weren't expecting this in this pop punk song. And now that comes up, ooh, you're creepy. And then you get that very satisfying outro where it just goes, in love with everybody, everybody's girl, and it sort of rolls out on that. And that's me and Spike, and he's going, everybody's girl, which of course he came up with that. I didn't come up with that. I had the outro and then he just added to it and it was like, oh, that's great. So yeah, Spike was very instrumental in catching this stuff. But yeah, there was no other punk band that would have put in that "Ooh, you're creepy" sample at that time.
That's awesome. And his harmonies on the back end of this whole chorus, they're very 50s, 60s to me. They have like that doo-wop type harmony sensibility. Very cool.
With everybody's girl. Oh yeah. Everybody's girl. Everybody's girl. In love with everybody. 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 Everybody's girl. Everybody's girl. In love with everybody.
After the "you're creepy" line, you say "with everybody" by yourself, Blag, and then the band comes back in on "Girl." We get these unison backing vocals on "Everybody's Girl," and then there's like this lower voice there with it in unison. It's almost like this, again, it reminds me of something 1950s Monster Mash-ish.
Yeah, I mean, I've been suffering with this forever. I have to sing tenor in this band, but I'm a baritone. My natural voice is, I'm in love with everybody's girl. I could sing that all day, but I got to go, I'm in love with, so it just tears my throat up. And now at my age, it's just like, it's just killing me.
So that is you on the low harmony there.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. And then we get, as you said, on the other "Everybody's Girls," that's Spike.
I think I echoed it after he did it, just to get a low thing in there. It might have been Spike. I don't exactly remember that, but I think it is "Everybody's Girl." That was probably me with him. Like he had done it first at "Everybody's Girl," and I did it like "Everybody's Girl," something. I don't know. Or that might have all been him.
Right around the time of the second "In Love with Everybody," the whole mix starts to slowly fade. And right around when the band comes back in on "Girl," we get this like flanger sounding synth panning left to right, swirling around. It almost sounds like a guitar, a flanger wide open, just kind of swirling. What is that? It almost sounded to me like, I could picture it like Eric is sitting at the board, right? And he's going, what is that noise? And finally he looks over and sees channel 27 has kind of got something happening, and he solos that channel and goes, someone left their flanger pedal on.
Right,
turn that thing off.
That might have been it. I should go back and look at it.
As I mentioned, the whole mix starts to slowly fade about halfway through till it becomes inaudible. And let's go back in time. When you heard the mix come back, what'd you think? New and improved Dwarves? Were you happy?
Oh yeah, I was ecstatic. I mean, this was when the Eric Valentine side comes in, because I'd never had a record that sounded like this. I'd never had anything mixed by a real true blue genius mixer guy. And as soon as I heard it, I was just like, fuck, we've arrived. Like, this is it. Like, this is what a record's supposed to sound like. And I became addicted to Eric's production. And, certain people worked with him and got bummed out, because it wasn't this or it wasn't that, or he wasn't some cool guy with a mohawk, or he did this. I was like, I felt just the opposite. I was like, we're as cool as you need to be. We're so cool, nobody will fucking talk to me anymore. It was like, I need you to like keep things in time and in tune and mix them right and do what you do. And I think that was why we had such a good, respectful sort of relationship. because he respected my material, which most guys with his talent wouldn't. They'd just be like, oh yeah, another simpleton with his dumb fuck you song and his stupid chords, and this isn't going to be a hit and it doesn't matter. But he always took my shit seriously. He was one of the first people, and he wasn't an industry guy yet, but I was sitting next to him going, this guy's going to be huge, you know, and I was right. And he always stuck with me. You know, I just saw Eric a couple months ago. We watched the eclipse from his place in Vermont, you know, and, you know, it was just very like, I've always been really grateful to Eric for believing in me. He didn't have to.
Yeah.
And, you know, this band really needed that because we were so kind of maligned and shut out of the industry, and also weren't really allowed to even play the reindeer games with the punk bands. I mean, it's one thing when it's like all the punk guys, it's like, well, they wouldn't let us in the mainstream, and so we made our own little group. It's like, yeah, you made your own little group and you wouldn't let me into it either.
Mm-hmm,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
we were always on the outside. So even, you know, when we were at Sub Pop, they never put us on a compilation record. It's like, we made 3 albums with you and we were there for 4 years, and you put out all these comps, but you were ashamed of us, you know? And there was always these elements with labels and different people, and, you know, they wouldn't, you know, I like when we went to Epitaph, I was ecstatic. I was like, yeah, I can't wait to see myself in a bunch of ads with Rancid and Pennywise and all these bands people like, and then they're going to pick up on us. And it was like, no, we're leaving you out of that. You know, nobody liked you, and you didn't go to high school with us in California, and
You never thought that getting into punk rock, but it, you know, it does imitate life, man. There's politics everywhere, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're left scratching your head. Listen, I want to thank you so much. I'm glad we finally got to meet. I want to shake your hand in person someday. I can't wait to see you again. But what's happening in 2025 for you and the Dwarves?
You know, we're headed with Me First and the Gimme Gimmes to Australia in a couple weeks, which is going to be fun. I'm really going to enjoy that. I love playing with those guys, and it's always great seeing Spike again. You know, we just came back from Florida. We did one of those Punk in the Park things.
Yeah.
You know, Cameron is a great benefactor of the band. He's always throwing me on festivals and stuff. And, you know, we're just kind of hunter-gatherers at this point. You know, they throw me a bone here and there. They play me on Sirius XM here and there. Somebody calls me for an interview here and there. And we just keep making cool records. You know, you go and listen to our records and the production value is just very high. Like we're that band where it's still like, we've been around for 40 years or something, and people come up to me and it's like, I never heard you guys before. This was really cool, you know, or somebody hears an album and goes, wow, you know, I didn't know you guys sounded like this. You know, there's another 15 albums I can buy. I'm like, yeah, you know, there's a bunch of shit. So
I
yeah,
take that.
you know,
I take that as a compliment now, man. When some little kid comes up and says, "I've never heard of you guys. Are you a new band?" I'm like, "Yes, I found the fountain of youth."
You know, it's a compliment, but it's like, fuck, man. You know, get me a real booking agent, get me a real gig, get me something I can use. You know.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit in with us.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for talking to me.
We will dare, and we're not running scared. We're the answer to all of our prayers, and we fit so right like a hand to a glove. Don't let them cancel our love.
Hey everybody, I hope you all loved that conversation with Blag as much as I did, and I can't wait to talk to Chris about it in the rap segment that's coming right up after a few words from our sponsors.
The NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Pandolfi inviting you to check out the new season of my podcast, Inside the Musician's Brain, with new episodes airing now.
Hearing it in that room, these guys playing this thing and trying to figure out how to play this song was mind-blowing. It's so inspiring to know there's so much more to it than you ever thought. And it just opened another door.
But when people find faith because they need to, in terms of just filling a void to feel better without actually being better, that's when it becomes a crutch, much like, drugs and alcohol do.
Man, I don't have all the time in the world here. If I want to be a professional bluegrass musician, I felt like I had to take a very strategic approach, just trying to get rid of the barriers and figure out what those barriers were.
The feelings still come and I have to reckon with that, but I think I have better ways of moving forward and not being stuck, which I think was the killer for me.
Catch all that and so much more on the new season of Inside the Musician's Brain.
Hey there, Chris DeMakes a Podcast listeners. Ready to take your podcast experience to the next level? By signing up for the supporting cast at ChrisDeMakes.com, you not only ensure the continued production of our show, but also unlock exclusive perks. Subscribers receive a weekly bonus episode of our other podcast, The After Party, co-hosted by Chris Fafalius and myself. Many fans rave that The After Party is just as enjoyable as the main show. And with close to 200 music-centric episodes in the archive, there's a treasure trove of entertainment awaiting you. Thank you for tuning in and for your support in keeping the podcast going strong. Join us at ChrisDeMakes.com and let's keep the fun conversations going.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a Podcast, email your best song via MP3 only and a short bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured artist is XX Smile from Quebec, Canada. The subject of their email to us was shitty pop punk at its finest, so we're going to go with that. This four-piece band is here to reignite the flames of good old 90s punk rock and the infectious energy of 2000s pop punk. Here's a snippet of their song, Horror Movies.
We could do something more. So let's watch some horror movies, zombie slashers for the frights. An excuse so I can hold you tight. So let's watch some horror movies, ghouls and ghosts to get real close. Anything to have you by my side.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Chris, that episode was a lot of fun, and I'm going to tell you right now, don't feel bad about getting those lyrics wrong, because I got those lyrics when I sent you the notes from the official, if you go to Apple Music or Spotify and you look at the lyrics that are on there, which means either A, the label uploaded them onto there, or the band did. So all those lyrics you have are what comes up. If you're listening along and you select the lyrics, those are what comes up. So I don't know. Blag needs to get in touch with somebody and get those fixed, because I laughed really hard. I don't know why this made me laugh. He goes, that's not right. That doesn't even make sense. My man, Tom. That doesn't make sense. I don't know. For some reason, that line, my man, Tom, made me laugh.
The first verse, though, tell me that she's an asshole. And he says, oh, I don't say that.
Yeah.
And do you hear, this is like Dennis, Dr. Sum 41 to me again. I swear I hear the word asshole there.
Well, right when you guys were still talking, so I pulled it up on my phone. For anyone who doesn't know, we record these immediately after the episode ends. Chris and I jump on here. I haven't got to listen to it again yet to analyze what it sounds like, but I imagine you listened to the song many times in preparation for this episode. I did it live in the moment, but you guys were talking and stuff, so I couldn't hear it that well.
Well, a couple things. It's rare that I get lyrics wrong on here, okay? And when I do, I'll fully take the heat. But this isn't that bad of a recording. It's a really good recording. Yeah. He enunciates. It's double vocals. It's kind of in your face. And how can I not discern what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It must be a Dr. Dennis situation again. But I don't know. I thought that made the episode extra funny how bad the lyrics were getting butchered. But it was cool. Hey, a lot of times we have people on here and they're like, I don't remember what my lyrics are. What are they? He knew them very well, which that was cool. Also, it was cool hearing the array of musical influences that I wouldn't have expected from the singer of the Dwarves. Everything from Frank Zappa to stuff from the Great American Songbook, Irma Thomas. The influences were all over the place, and I think that's a lot
Ghetto
cooler.
Boys, NWA.
Yeah, right. You wouldn't expect that. I think that's a lot cooler than being like naming 4 punk bands from the early 80s who were your influences.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you're going to bring it up at some point, but what I want to know now is how many more records did Spike ghost on? Did he sing backing vocals on? We know he sang on The Decline. Now he's sang on this track. I know there's more. There's got to be more.
It's wild, the all-star cast of people that Blag has worked with on this album or just in general. Yeah, Spike, Eric Valentine. He brought up Petra Hayden. Do you know who Petra Hayden is?
Why do I know that name? I feel like you've talked about her before.
She's worked with a million different people. If you go look at her Wikipedia, it's really impressive. But she's from That Dog, a band that I absolutely adore. I don't know what his connection is to That Dog or to Petra. Maybe it was through Sub Pop back in the day, or I don't know how she ended up singing on Dwarves songs or whatever, or if she just does a lot of studio work. But yeah, he seems to know everybody. And dude, also, you guys got into this. The Dwarves' reputation definitely precedes them. Like I was, I don't know, not nervous, but I was kind of like, what's this guy going to be like? And it turns out he's like super nice guy.
Super nice, super educated. And he just, a lot of these guys, I had said in the episode, I get to know them. Joe Queer's a great example. And you think, oh, this is just another 3-chord downstroke guy singing about, silly songs about high school. And it's so much more than that when you unwrap it, the influences. And I can hear it in this song. This isn't just straight ahead punk rock. Yeah, it takes a page out of the Ramones book for sure. But the guitar playing, we talked about, it's not your just downstroke straight up punk rock. There's something a little bit more going on here rhythmically. It's really cool.
Yeah, and Blag talked about casting. He put this cast together. He's like a casting director of people that can hold their own and bring something to the table. And he said like, hey, I'm not good with harmonies. I don't know what to sing or what to tell someone to sing, but I do know that I could say, hey, we need background vocals here. We need harmonies here. And you trust the people you work with to provide that and knock it out of the park.
Yeah, and how I even told him, I said, that's very humble to have someone say, yeah, you know what, I'm just kind of average, but I have these great ideas. I hear these productions in my head. Dee Snider said that. He said, I don't know a D chord to save my life, but I can hear it in my head. I just need the people to make the magic happen.
Having a vision, that is one of the most underrated things about having a musical project or a band or a solo project, is having a vision for it, having that person to bring it all together. Once again, bringing it back to that casting thing. He puts these people around him, works with the right producer and the right musicians around him, and to have that vision and be that sort of point where everything comes together. I mean, that's really important. Yeah, Dee Snider's a perfect example. I feel like he's like that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been tons of musicians that have been in this band, but it seems like he's kind of locked on to a key few. He's locked on to producer Eric Valentine. I guess Eric's done like 7 or 8 records, and it's a relationship that just continues to work. And I love what he said about Eric, Chris. At the very end, he said, Eric just liked me and my songs. Yeah. He wasn't the Hollywood producers like, oh, do I hear a hit here? He liked the material. And sometimes when you're doing it from the complete notion of from the heart, and this is what it is, it ends up being great. It doesn't have to have this commercial accessibility or viability.
Well, another thing he said that I thought was really cool and makes me want to work with, it probably makes a lot of people want to work without Eric Valentine, as if you already didn't want to, based off of his resume and the songs he's produced, is that he said, I brought my songs to him, and maybe a lot of producers would have kind of been like, okay, whatever, I'm going to hit record in here. But no, he took them seriously, and he also saw the vision I had for these songs. And yeah, that's important. If someone's excited about the songs you bring to them, I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, hey, 2025's off to an awesome start. Thanks to everybody that is in our supporting cast. You can go sign up for that over at ChrisDeMakes.com and get bonus episodes of the After Party. Yes, you can hear Chris and I even talk more to you with, I think we got what, Chris, like 200 back episodes now. It'd be a great time to join the After Party for as little as $5 or $10 a month. ChrisDeMakes.com. And keep those reviews coming on Apple. Chris, what do you got? I know you got a review for us.
I got one here today that mentions not only Chris Makes a Podcast, but also the After Party that you were just talking about, Chris. Yes, we do have over 200 episodes in the back catalog now. So, for a few bucks a month, you can have access to this giant catalog of really fun episodes. Today's review that I'm going to read comes from Bob Doku, the username Bob Doku, who gave us 5 stars. The headline of this review is Favorite Podcast Series, Insightful, Thoughtful, Entertaining. And Bob Doku writes, every show has been a great listen. I found the show when searching for shows on favorite musical artists of mine. While it started there, I since listened to many other songwriters sharing their construction of a single song both lyrically and musically. Every guest shares their history, candor, and humor across every rock genre. The bonus subscription After Party might even be better than the regular show. Explore and enjoy. That is a real endorsement of the After Party there. And I don't know if that's more of a cut down of Chris Makes a Podcast or just a big compliment of the After Party.
I was trying to process that myself, Chris. Well, who was that user that left that name?
Bob Doku.
Bob Doku, thank you so much for that. We really, really appreciate it. And, we're coming up in a couple months. June 1st will be 5 years of Chris DeMakes a Podcast. I cannot believe it for the life of me. It is our pleasure to present this show to you. Thank you for listening. I want to thank this week's guest, Blag Dahlia from the Dwarves, for sitting in the hot seat. And we'll see you next week. Hey, friends. Have you been loving Chris DeMakes a Podcast? Well, spread the love by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't hesitate to share what you enjoy about the show in an actual written review on Apple Podcasts. Not only does it help more people discover us, but we often read reviews in the wrap segment of the show. It's a quick, cost-free way to support us and takes just a minute of your time. Your reviews mean the world to us and help us keep the podcast thriving. Thank you for being a listener, and thank you for being a friend.
Hey, this is Dewey Halpus, host of Peer Pleasure on the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Join me each week as I explore another long-form conversation with one of your favorite musicians, actors, comedians, or creatives. From Chino Moreno of the Deftones, John Gorley of Portugal the Man, to Fat Mike from NoFX and Ian MacKaye from Fugazi and Minor Threat, we go all over the map. From Fall Out Boy to Slayer, Peer Pleasure has it all. Check us out now on Sound Talent Media.
One Hit Thunder is a podcast where we both celebrate and have a good laugh about bands and artists that had just one hit that we all know. Each week, we're joined by a guest from the world of music or comedy to learn more than you ever thought you would about some songs that you can't forget. And we decide if they brought the One Hit Thunder or were nothing more than a one-hit blunder. Look, if you listen to the show, you're probably going to laugh, and I guarantee you're going to crush next time the bar has music trivia. Tag Team, Jane Child, Meredith Brooks, Looking Glass, Sean Mullins, Eiffel 65, EMF, Crash Test Dummies, Crazy Town, Chumbawamba. We have hundreds of episodes in our back catalog and a new episode each week, so pass the Dutchie, make sure you're connected, and subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your pods.